everyone. We are continuing our learning of Sefer Yirmiyahu, Perek Beis, and the Perek is continuing Yirmiyahu's inauguration as a prophet. Vayihi Devar Hashem Elai Lemor, the word of Hashem came to me, and Pasuk Beis of this Perek is a very beautiful and famous Pasuk. It's been set to Nigunim, and it is also in the Zechrainos, in the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. A beautiful idea of God's love for the Jewish people, even though we're sinning. Haloich v'karasa b'yazne Yerushalayim leimor. You, the Navi Yirmiyah, go and proclaim in the ears of the people of Yerushalayim, saying, Kayamar Hashem. This is what Hashem says. Zacharti lach chesed niurayach. I remember well the loving kindness of your youth. Really, this is a remarkable expression. When you were young, when you left Mitzrayim, even though you were slaves, but you had security, you had food, and you were willing to leave all of that to go into a desert because of your faith in God and because of your love for God. And although you would think Yetzias Mitzrayim was Lagamri, what Hashem did for us, and yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying thank you to Am Yisrael for following him into the desert. Hashem's love for the Jewish people is so great that he makes it sound as if Yetzias Mitzrayim was the favor we did for him instead of the taiva that he did for us. Zacharti lach chesed niurayach. I remember the loving kindness you showed me when you were young. Ahavat kalulosayach. I remember the love of our wedding, because essentially you left Mitzrayim to become betrothed to Hashem, because Matan Torah is treated as a chasna. Lech teich acharai bamidbar, b'eretz lo zarua. You went after me in a desert, in a land in which nothing grows. Kodesh Yisrael Lashem. The Jewish nation is holy to God. Holy means set aside, sanctified, elevated, even in their sinful state. Reishit Tevuasa, the first of his grain. So here first actually means the choicest of his grain. Now if you remember, Rashi in Chumash brings, in the very first pasuk in the Chumash, Bereshis bara Elokim, in the beginning God created heaven and earth. Rashi says from the Medrash that Bereshis can also mean because of those things that are called Reshis. God created the world, and that includes Torah, that is called Reshis, the first of God's creation, and that is called Yisrael, that are called Reshis Tevuasa, and that's Bereshis bara Elokim. But the pasuk says, Kodesh Yisrael Hashem Reshis Tevuasa. Kol eichlav, all who devour or consume the Jewish people. Eventually, maybe not in the short term, Yashamu shall be made desolated. Ra'ah tavai alehem. Only evil shall come upon them. Niyum Hashem, the words of God. So Perek Aleph and the first three verses of Perek Beis ends the first haftarah of the 3 weeks that's called Divrei Yirmiyahu. Starting from Perek Beis Pasuk Daled is the second haftarah of the 3 weeks, which begins with Shimu Devar Hashem, listen. The third haftarah of the 3 weeks is from Yeshayahu, the first chapter of Shem Chazon Yeshayahu. We're not going to learn that now. We learned that in Sefer Yeshayahu. So now the Nevuah continues. Shimu Devar Hashem Beis Yaakov V'chol Mishpachos Beis Yisrael. Yes, I love you. You're wonderful. I'm grateful for you. Hashem begins with Divrei Chiba. But from Divrei Chiba, we have to move to Musar. This itself is very instructive, that before you give Musar to your children, make them feel how much you care about them, how much you love them, because only then is the Musar going to be effective. But now the Musar does start. Listen, all of you. Pasukei, Ka Yamar Hashem, Ma Matza Avosechem Bi'avel, Ki Rachaku Me'alai, Vayelchu Acharei HaHevel V'yabalu. What did your forefathers find deficient in me, that they dropped me and went to these fake gods? They went after Hevel. Hevel is breath, nothingness, vanity. And as a result, they have become nothing. V'loi amru, why didn't they think, Ayeh Hashem amalo sanim eretz Mitzrayim, where is the God who took us out of Mitzrayim? Why is he not helping us? They should have thought about that. HaMelech Haisanu b'midbar b'eretz arava v'shucha, who took us through a desert that was parched and dry lands, b'eretz sia v'tzalmaves, that was desolate and faced with the shadows of death, with wild animals, b'eretz layavar ba'ish, through territory in which no human being ever traveled, lo yashav adam sham, and nobody lived there. V'yaviyaschem, and Hashem says, and not only did I take you safely through the desert, but I brought you to Eretz HaKarmel, a fertile and delightful land. Lecho pirya v'tuva, that you could consume its produce and its goodness. I did so much for you. I took you out of Mitzrayim. I took you through the Midbar with the Man and the Be'er and the Ananei HaKavod, and I brought you to a beautiful, fertile land. And what did you do with the gift that I gave you? Vatavayu vatatamu esartzi, you came and you contaminated my land. V'nachalasi samtem l'tayeva, and you made my inheritance an abomination. How could you do that? HaKayanim layomra yeh Hashem, the Kehanim who are supposed to lead the people, they didn't say, where is Hashem? We have to look for Hashem. They didn't do their job. Tovsei HaTorah lo yedoni, those who hold on to the Torah, those who are supposed to be the people who teach Torah, they didn't know me. They forgot about me. Harayim, the shepherds, because again, the Manhigei Yisrael are called shepherds because they take care of the flock. We are the flock. Pashubi, they were negligent. Hanavim, those who should have been prophets, Nibu Babal, they were prophesying for the Baal Avodah Zarah. V'yacharei lo yo'ilu holacho, and they followed that which has no power and doesn't help. How could this be? Lachain, therefore, O dariv itchem nu Hashem, I have a quarrel with you, I have a machlokes with you. Yes, b'nei b'neichem achiv, and this continues to your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, because the Avos set a pattern, and the generations that followed continued that pattern. Ki ivru iyei kitiyim, even if you go to the faraway islands of the Kitiyim, these are the islands near Italy and Greece, pretty far from Eretz Yisrael. Ureu, and look at the Goyim who live on those islands. V'kedar shilchu, send to the Arab nations, B'nai Yishmael, hisbainenu ma'od, and think about the way they behave. Ureu, and see what they do. Hein haisa kazais, has there ever been anything like you're doing? Meaning, it is true that the Umos HaOlam worshipped Avodah Zarah, but they never had the relationship with Hashem that you had. And that's what Pasuk Yud Aleph is saying, makes your Aveira much worse than their Aveira. Einochinami, under the Sheva Mitzvah B'nei Noach, a non-Jew is forbidden in Avodah Zarah, but they're less accountable than you. because you had this beautiful relationship with Hashem, and you threw it away. Hahemir, pasuk Yud Aleph, Hahemir goy Elohim, v'hema lo Elohim. Has any nation ever replaced its God by another God if that other God is garnished? Yeah, so if they go from one Avodah Zarah to another Avodah Zarah, that's fine. But to drop Hashem and go to a nothing? Ami Heimir Kavodo Below Yoel. My nation substituted its glory with something that's worthless. Shemu Shamayim Al Zais. The very heavens should cry in how astounding this could have been. Visaru Charvu Ma'id. And there ought to be a storm. In other words, he's saying, this was so unbelievable. Klal Yisrael that had everything, throwing it away for Avodah Zarah. The very heavens should cry and be ripped and be stormed and be turbulent, stormy and turbulent. Ki shtayim rais asa ami. My people did two evil things. The first thing is oisi azvu. They left me. Makor mayim chayim, a source of living waters. That's the first thing, leaving me. And the second thing is, what did they leave me for? Lachsayv lahem bayrais bayros nishbarim. They leave a spring that is gushing forth pure and clean and delicious water, to dig an inferior well that is broken and full of holes, that cannot even hold any water. That's idiocy. If a person leaves their employer, their boss, who treated them beautifully, but at least they get some more money in the other job, all right, that's still not a good thing, but at least it's understandable. But Am Yisrael leaves Hashem for Avodah Zarah. Shouldn't they think, Ha'eved Yisrael is Klal Yisrael? Now remember, keep in mind that when yirmiyahu is giving these prophecies, although the base of Mikdash hasn't been destroyed, there's been a tremendous amount of suffering. The 10 tribes were exiled. Malchus Yehuda was decimated. There was a tremendous amount of suffering before there was the Churban. So now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying through the Navi, did you ever wonder why these things are happening? Ha'eved Yisrael? Should the Jewish people be slaves to the nations of the world? Im Yalid Bayasu? Were you born into captivity? Madua Hayalavaz. Why was Yisrael plundered by the enemy? Why were they vulnerable? Why were they weak? Why were they exiled? Were they born as slaves? They certainly were not. Alav Yishagu Kafirim, and yet the nations of the world will be like young lions that are roaring for their prey. Nosnu Kailam, they raise their voices, V'yashisu Arsa L'shama, they will make this land to be desolate. Arav Nitasu Mibli Yoshev, they will burn those cities so no one can live in them. And Gam B'nei Noif V'Tach Panches. Now Nof and Tach Panches are two major cities in Mitzrayim. And going back to the book of Malachim, at various points when the Jewish people were afraid of Assyria and then afraid of Babylonia, they tried to make strategic alliances with Mitzrayim to kind of protect them in an attack by Babylon or Assyria. And the Nevi'im basically were very much against any connection with the evil, corrupt Malchus of Mitzrayim. And the Navi says, the people of Naif and Tach Panches, the two big cities in Mitzrayim, Yeruch Kadkod, they will smash you in the head. You think you will get helped? They will fight you as well. Halo Zeis Tashelach. This is what you've done. Ozveiches Hashem Elokeich Be'eis Malichech Baderech. when you abandon the God that takes care of you, this is what's going to happen. And now Hashem says, V'yata, and now, Ma loch l'derech Mitzrayim lishtos mei shichor. Why are you taking the road down to Mitzrayim as if it were to drink the waters of the Nile? Umalach l'derech Ashur, and why are you even collaborating with Assyria? This is going back to an earlier event, in order to get protection from Babylonia. Lishtais main, or to drink those rivers. That's not going to help you. Connecting to this nation, that nation, they're all Rishayim. When you're not connected to Hashem, you're vulnerable and exposed. Tiyasrech ra'asech. Speaking to the Jewish people as a woman, as a single woman or one person. Tiyasrech ra'asech, your evil shall give you suffering. Mishuvasayech tochichuch, your waywardness, going off the path, shall give you a musar and a lesson. Udei uri'i, and you will know and you will see. Ki rav amar azveches Hashem Elokeich, that when you leave Hashem, it is bad and it is bitter. V'lo pachtasi elayich, niyom Hashem Elokim tzvakos. And I will no longer be fearful for you, meaning I will no longer watch over you, says Hashem. Ki me'olam, from time immemorial, shavarti ulech. When there was the yoke of oppression of the Umos HaOlam, whether it be in Mitzrayim or during the period of the Shoftim, I broke the yoke. I gave you freedom. Nitakti masrasayach. I pulled away your ropes that were tying you down. So I liberated you from all of the enemies. Vataimri lo yavor. And you promised, I will not violate your words. But you didn't keep your promise. Ki al kol giva gavoa v'tachas kol eitz ra'anan at tsoya zayna. On top of every hill and under every tree, that's where they would place avodah zaros. You are a wandering prostitute. Just as a prostitute goes from man to man to man, you are an unfaithful wife. You were married to Hashem. And under every tree and on top of every hill and mountaintop, you are a prostitute. V'anochi nitatich sorek. Now this uses a different metaphor. I planted you as a vine that would have roots in the soil and produce beautiful fruit. Kula zera emes. Fruit of beauty. Truth. Truth basically means it would come out good. V'eich nepacht li surei hagefen nochriya. It's as strange as you plant a grape seed and you get a poisonous weed from the grape seed. How could it be that I planted you as a vine and you came up as a foreign plant? Ki im tichapsi baneser v'sarbi lach bayris. Again, metaphorically, even if you wash yourself with neser. Neser is kind of a sand that wipes off stains. And boris is lye, like a soap, meaning even if you took soap and water and detergent and steel wool, you will not be able to take the stain off your soul. Your averos are like a stain that can't go off. And now you even have the nerve to be hypocrites. You say to me, Hashem says, I did not become Tamei, I did not follow the Baal. You refuse to even acknowledge your guilt. Now again, what is interesting is that this is a specific reference that in the days of Yoshio HaMelech, he was a righteous king. And in the book of Malachim, he brought the Yidden to Tshuva, and they seem to have repudiated Avodah Zarah. And yet the Gemara says that although they stopped worshipping Avodah Zarah publicly and on the outside, in the privacy of their homes, they were mocking Yoshio. And they still were Oved Avodah Zarah. They were Aduk. They were connected to the Avodah Zarah. And that's the remez here. How do you say you didn't sin? You haven't followed the Baal. Because publicly you're behaving like a tzaddik. Re'i darkeich bagai. Look at how you behave in the valleys, the hidden places. De'i ma'asis. Know what you've done, at least be maida. Bichra kala misareches derachaha. So this is kind of using a bit of a vivid metaphor. A bichra kala means a very swift camel that is in heat. When an animal is in heat, it is sexually aroused. It has to indulge its taiva. It's almost unstoppable. Right? It's very dangerous to be around a camel, a donkey, an elephant, a bull when they go into heat. And therefore he's describing the Jewish people were so addicted to the tumah of Avodah Zarah. They were like a bichra kala, like a swift camel in heat. Misareches drachah, that's sticking on a road that it has to go to where it wants to go to find its satisfaction. And then it switches the animal. Para lumad midbar. It is like a wild donkey that's habituated in the desert. Bi'avas nafsha shafa ruach. It's taiva, it's sucking up air as it's running to do what it wants to do. Tanasa mi yeshavena. Who can restrain it? Your desire for sin, for Avodah Zarah, was an unrestrainable, uncontrollable taiva. But Hashem says, on one hand, the wild donkey cannot be caught. So you might think, I'll get away with it. The answer is no. Kol mivaksha, but those who are trying to capture the donkey, lo yeyafu, they will not get tired, because bechadsha yimtza'ua. In other words, the way it works is that eventually the animal gets sexually satisfied, and when the mother gets pregnant, it will have to rest in order to give birth to its child, and then you will be able to catch it. B'chadsha, when it goes into the months of delivery, yimtza'una, you will find it. Hashem says to the Jewish people as well, your time will come. Mini raglech miyochef. But you still have a way to withhold your feet from being barefoot, meaning when you go into Golus, you won't even have shoes, but Hashem says there's a way. There is a way. You can hold your feet from being barefoot, ugronech mitzema, and you can prevent your throat from being thirsty. I am giving you a way of doing it. You can do tshuva. The gates of tshuva are open. But what do you say? Vatomri. But you say, Noash, we have given up. We don't want to do tshuva. Lo, no, ki ahavti zarim, I love these foreign idols, acharei melech. Again, Hashem is basically saying, I'm giving you an out, and you don't want to take it. Ki baishes ganav ki matzeh, like a ganav who is trying to steal surreptitiously. And he's caught. So besides the punishment, there is such humiliation when a ganav is found. Kain hovishu beis Yisrael, the whole Jewish nation has been humiliated. Your averos are now discovered. Hema, the regular people, Machayim, Sareim, Kayaneim, Nevi'im, the kings and the princes and the Kohanim and the Nevi'im. Omrim la'etz, you say to a piece of wood, Avi ata, you are my father. V'la'even, at yelidatani, you say to a rock, you gave birth to me. Ki panu elai oiref v'loi panim, and vis-a-vis Hashem, they give me the back of their neck and not their face. They turn their backs to me. U'bi'esra asam, and when things are tough, then Yomru, Kuma v'hoshienu, come and save us. And Hashem says, what about the fact that you put all of your trust in these idols? Ayei aleihecha asher asisa lecha. Where is the gods that you made? Yakumu, let them arise. Im yoshiucha b'yesra asacha, will they save you in your time of trouble? Ki mispar arecha hayolahecha Yisrael. You had as many gods as you had cities. Every city had its own god. Lama sarivu elai kulchem. Why are you fighting? Why are you complaining that I'm not helping you? When I gave you all of the tools for tshuva and you refused to take them. Pashatim bi, you rebelled against me, Nom Hashem. Lashav, hikesi espenechem. All of the sufferings that I brought on your children, like the exile of the 10 tribes, seems to be for nothing, because Musar lo lakachu, they did not take Musar. Ochla charbechem niviachem ka'aryeh mashches. And not only didn't they take Musar, but you turned against the prophets and you killed them. And your sword consumed prophets, like, Nevi'im, as a lion consumes prey. So again, this is one of the rayas that, in addition to Avodah Zarah, it doesn't say arayas here, but Avodah Zarah, Gili Arayas Shvichus Damim. So in this parak, it mentions Avodah Zarah and Shvichus Damim. Hador atem ra'u devar Hashem, hamidbor hayisi liyisrael, imeret ma failure. Hasn't this generation seen and remembered all that I did for them? Was I like a desert? In other words, did I put them in a desolate place? I always took care of them. Was I like darkness? Madua amru ami radnu lo nava odelecha. Why, oh why did the people say, Radnu, we have gone down from Hashem. We don't want to come to you. Hatishkach basula edja. Does a virgin bride forget the adornments of her wedding day? Kala kishura. A kala forgets her jewelry. How could you forget the glorious wedding of Matan Torah? V'ami shechechuni. But my nation has forgotten me. Yamim ein mispor, for days that you can't even count. Ma teitivi darkech levakesh ahava. Why don't you make your ways good to seek love of Hashem? Lochein gam es haraos limat es drachayich. But all you have learned are evil behaviors and not good ones. Gam bichnafayich, in the corners of your garment, again speaking to the Jewish people like a woman. Nimtzu dam nafshas evyonim nikiyim, there are poor, powerless people who were murdered, and you have that blood on your garment. Lo b'machteres matzasim, they weren't burglars that you found in a cave, right? This is a remez that the Torah says, if you find a burglar trying to come into your house, you're allowed to kill him, because the burglar would kill you if you don't kill him. And Hashem is just basically saying, all of these people you murdered were not found in the machteres, and yet you killed them. Vataimri, and once again you tell yourself that it was justified. Kini kisi, I am pure. Achshav apay mimeno, let Hashem just take his anger away from me. But Hashem says, Hineni nishpat isach ala marech lo chatasi. I'm going to punish you not only for your aveira, but for your saying you didn't sin. Meaning there's a big nafkamina between a sinner who at least acknowledges their sin versus the sinner who lives in a world of denial. Ma tezli mi'oid l'shanos es darkeich. How low you have become, how cheap you have become to change your ways from purity to impurity. Gam mi Mitzrayim tevaishi. You will be more ashamed than even the Egyptians, because they never were tzaddikim. Kasher basht mi Ashur. And you will be similarly more ashamed than Ashur. Gam me'eseh tetzi v'yadayach al roshech. There will be a golus in which you will be leaving your land, and your hands will be on top of your head. Again, if you remember some of the famous Holocaust pictures of sometimes children leaving with their hands on their head. Ki mo'as Hashem b'miftachayach. Because Hashem will despise those nations that you put your trust in. You put your trust in Mitzrayim and Ashur, and you think they're going to save you. Hashem despises those nations, so they will give you no protection. V'loi tatzlichi lahem, and you will have no hatzlacha with them or through them.